Animal Farm by George Orwell. Stick around. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Three River Books. So another George Orwell book. I highly recommend that you read Animal Farm and also pick this up. A lot of times, 1984, also by George Orwell, is kind of sold together as a set. It has to do with government. All right, so a dystopian type of repression and revolting type of, revolution type of style of book. There is a little bit of sci-fi or fantasy that has to do with that, mostly because of the way George Orwell wrote his books was around World War II, around the Stalin and Hitler era, and the huge distrust in communism. You'll actually see through the book that the animals themselves call each other comrade. Again, a little bit of play on words, and George Orwell is a very well written author. Again, 1930s, 1940s, not a good time for anybody. But I think that if you are someone that's into literary classics and want to read a little bit about Big Brother and how governments control people, these two books are fantastic. Now, Animal Farm in itself, and if you haven't read it, I highly recommend you do. It's a very, very short book. It's less than like 200 pages. There's some different there's some different styles of books. This happens to be the farm itself, calling it Animal Farm. And just a brief synopsis without giving too much away. There is a farmer that owns a bunch of animals. And one of the oldest pigs is named Major. In the beginning of the book, Major gives a speech to the other animals to basically start a revolution. He just kind of says that the farmers or the humans are kind of repressing the animals. They're being used for food. They're always cold in the wintertime. They are not being treated fairly enough. Other animals on other farms need to stand up for themselves, etc., and so forth. And he basically starts a revolution where the animals sort of, quote unquote, wake up. They can all talk in the book because it makes sense. At first, trying to start a revolution is very difficult to do, I guess, if you're an animal, but they start doing things for themselves, and they finally tell the farmer, we had enough of you, and we're going to run our own farm. Well, the farmer said, no, you're not. You're my animals, and I do with you what I will. And the animals start to fight back. The farmers and the farmer's family get into a huge battle, and they fight the pigs, they fight the ducks, they fight the horses. It's kind of insane, right? Like, I don't know how much he was smoking back then, but that's what happens. Now, they win. The animals actually win and kick the farmer off his land. There's a couple of deaths. There's a lot of people that are wounded, including the animals as well. And they do this big ceremony, and now, as things progress, some form of order. And lo and behold, another pig steps up. Napoleon the pig, right? Napoleon steps up and he says, you know what? I'll be in charge, and I'll start organizing everything. And he organizes things in a way that benefits the other pigs, but not necessarily the other animals. And you can see where this is going. They also start writing laws, like no animal will ever hurt another animal or kill another animal. No animal will ever sleep in a bed. They make their own laws, and this is the way it's going to be, and we're going to have this great, fantastic place called a farm, and nobody else is going to tell us what to do. Well, as that goes on and the story progresses, you will starve to death if nobody does the work. So there has to be work involved. And at first starts off pretty fairly, but then things start to change. Well, the pigs decide that, well, it's cold outside. I don't want to live in a straw barn anymore. Let me go take the farmer's house and I'll sleep in the bed. And somebody says to them, hey, we said we weren't going to sleep in any beds. He goes, well, I only meant that we were going to not sleep in any beds if it wasn't available, and you could sleep in the bed as long as there's no sheets. Okay? And then they're like, well, he finds out that a couple of people, another pig called Snowball, turns into a traitor and he starts doing things, or allegedly starts doing things around the farm that interfere with Napoleon, and he becomes a traitor. And the other outlying farms that are still run by humans start, collecting some of their animals. Like one of the horses, the old horse, kind of doesn't really want anything to do with this new style of living, so she goes and lives on the other farm with the human beings, because the human beings kind of take care of the horses. They don't have to do everything, right? They just sit there, they whinny, they poo, whatever, and she's very happy over there. Snowball is a traitor, and when they look for Snowball and they can't find him, they find out later that Snowball has other people, like a couple of ducks and a couple of other animals that are sabotaging projects. And the Napoleon finds out who it is, and he executes the other animals. He uses his power and influence with the pigs and a couple of dogs that are his henchmen. He uses pit bulls and Rottweilers as henchmen to keep the others in line. This is a pig. And he kills them. And they're like, hey, we had a rule that no other animal will kill another animal. He goes, yes. But what I said and what I meant was, you won't kill another animal unless there's cause. So he constantly changes the rules to suit himself and others. There's this big project that goes on about building a windmill, and all these animals get together to build a windmill, and then the first one gets destroyed, and then the second one has to be rebuilt. Well, while these projects are going on, you start to realize that he is manipulating the people to keep all these projects going, so they're not looking at him and as how well he has it, or his pigs have it. So his pigs, and they all say that he's a great guy, and that Napoleon is this great pig and he helps everybody out, and they start having these ceremonies on the day of the Great War just to give them something to do other than to think about how well the pigs have it and how poorly everybody else has it. So then, and again, that's how the story goes, and it's basically building a communist regime, all right? That is kind of the purpose of Orwell's work, is that a government, even though, they said that they didn't have it that good, they created their own government, and at the end, you realize that they don't have it that good. They basically assumed a communist party where the upper tier, the pigs, have everything, and the other animals are worse off than what they were before. All right, so again, very small book. I don't want to talk too much about it because, again, if you want to read it, it's less than 200 pages. But it does show you how easily people can be, or animals can be, convinced that there's a better lifestyle. And then once you create the narrative and the information that's there, as they have an ability to control the populace. The best part about the book was that when the horse that ran away to work with the farmer, a lot of the new breeds of animals that were coming in didn't know the old style of the way they had it with a human being, but she's still around, and she came back to the old farm, or the animal farm, to talk to the animals that were still alive. And there wasn't very many of them. No, they weren't being eaten, but they were being killed or died off of old age. And if they were not towing the line, they would be murdered. And so the new crop of species didn't know any better, and they thought this is the way the world was. So that was kind of the point, is that you don't know how good you had it if your history is being rewritten, and just because there's a leader that's charismatic and wants to have good intentions, that governments will ultimately corrupt. They will be corrupted. And it's up to the people to keep them in line. All right. So again, great story. I highly recommend this book, Animal Farm, George Orwell or 1984. These are both fantastic books. Has to do with government, Big Brother, that kind of thing, and how that government can corrupt and will eventually corrupt if given enough time. All right. So you can look at your own government where you live now and you decide for yourself. I am an Amazon affiliate, so if you want to read this book, I will put a link down below. Please like and subscribe. A lot of you guys watch me all the time, but you are not subscribed, so please do so. I am also on Patreon, so if you want to watch videos like this before anybody else, please go to Patreon, become a member. It's only $1 a month. I really appreciate your support. Thank you very much, guys, and as always, keep reading.